What's the worst thing a friend has ever done to you? Let him crash at ours when he was between places. While I was out, he got drunk and tried to bully my wife into having sex with him. He told her, if you don't I will tell him you did and he will believe me. She suggested he go get some beers first and then lock the doors. Hid out at a neighbor's and called me and the cops. Cops got there before I did and couldn't actually arrest him for anything, but basically said he should duck off to somewhere else or we will find a reason to take you to jail. Good thing too, because if I got there first, I would probably gotten arrested for kicking his ass. Stole minus games, Wheel of Fortune and some baseball game. That was 30 years ago and I'm still hurt about it. His mom never made him give them back, even when we begged. Convinced the rest of my friends that I'd done something unforgivable, and then convinced them that they shouldn't be friends with me anymore. While we were studying abroad, with no other friend support system around. It was awful. He stole $50 worth of stuff that I had at my house that belonged to a different friend of ours. If the third friend wasn't the nicest guy I'd ever known, he probably would have accused me of being a thief, and could have led to me being ostracized by our whole group of friends. I didn't have a job at the time, so it took a little bit to pay him back the $50. But I was finally able to. Duck you JQ thief. My friend slept with my, obviously now ex-husband while we were still together. About 4 years later she got mad that I wouldn't be a bridesmaid in her third wedding. Edit, for clarification. My friend thought that it would be funny if he burned off the hair from my leg with a lighter and a deodorant. He ended up giving me a second-degree burn on most of my calf that is still very visible after 2 years. I'm married and one of my best friends was a woman who was basically a younger sister to me. My wife really never had any issue with it since there were no trust issues. Around our second year of marriage, this friend, let's call her Jay, decided to spread a rumor to my co-workers that we had been having a one-time affair. One of my co-workers told me and showed me proof that Jay was saying all this stuff. When I finally confronted her, she initially just kept lying about it, until I showed her the screenshots of her texts. Then everything blew up. She got angry at me for not caring about her, not loving her, and that I left her by getting married. Eventually I found out that the one-time rumor wasn't a one-time rumor, and instead, she had been saying this stuff to her co-workers and family since I got married. That I was leaving my wife for her. Physically attacked me because they thought I was attracted to them and they had to prove they weren't gay. I was not attracted to them. Never thought of them that way once. Hooked up with my then girlfriend. It was my first serious girlfriend and he played it off like I should just forget about it. It was almost like he was proud that he at least hooked up with a girl. Ducked my husband the entire time she attended Bible study with me to pray for the healing and saving of my marriage. I once got stabbed in the side, between the ribs, with a kitchen knife, unsanitary, and almost strangled to the point of unconsciousness death by my ex-best friend and had to be taken via ambulance to the ER to get a knife yanked out of my side and stitches. Fun. At least she had to pay for all of my medical bills, thanks hon, and got jail time. For those curious, I'm perfectly fine. And she got 11 years for attempted manslaughter. This all happening too, 2 years ago. So she's got quite a while to go till she gets out. Edits for clarity. My best friend fell in love with a guy at work. She decided to run away with him but changed her mind. To cover up her actions, she told her husband that I talked her into running away with me because at the time I was getting a divorce. She told him I said we should both start over in a new city. Needless to say, she went back to him and he thought I was a dipit from then on. She died recently at 58 years old, and though I visited her irregularly, I didn't go to her funeral because of the awkwardness. My friend was a mutual friend of me and my ex-GF. He encouraged both us of that it wasn't a healthy relationship to be in. Which it wasn't. He only did so though because he wants to sleep with her. After we broke up and she got drunk and depressed, they slept together. Some friends had done some horrible stuff to me. We're capable of that. But the worst I would have to say is with this one girl. I really did enjoy being friends with her and I cared about her a lot. As soon as we became friends we clicked instantly and we just had the most amazing conversations and had a similar understanding that you don't find in many other people. Anyway, her boyfriend's brother raped me. And I didn't really tell anyone about it. But my boyfriend at the time found out, reached out to people trying to find out information. So this girl's boyfriend, the brother of my rapist, made her disown me as a friend. She just dropped me once the truth came out. Like we didn't spend the last year together attached at the hip. Blocked me on all accounts. Pretended like we were never friends. Then her and her boyfriend had a falling out and all of a sudden she resurfaced saying she was done with him and she's sorry. But I guess that didn't last longer than a week because once they got back together she dropped and blocked me again. It hurt me a lot. Still hurts when I think about it. It's really ducked up to do things like that to people. Edit. Hey guys. I didn't expect such a big response. I thought maybe 15 people tops would read this. To keep it short, I am okay. It was definitely a learning experience but it didn't break me. I flew to Japan to meet up with them and they ghosted me. Hey. At least you get to experience those internet hotels. As someone who is claustrophilic, it is one of my dreams to go to one. I just don't want to spend thousands of dollars and 28 hours on a ducking plane. Repeatedly made dead mom jokes. Knowing my mom had passed away. Also saying things like, well, my mom is still alive. So you can just go be president of the Dead Moms Club. In college. Had been dating the same woman since second quarter of my freshman year. Was certain she was it. Start of senior year. Best friend at the time and I are talking and I tell him I think she's the one. 6 months later. He confesses he started ducking her a week later and wanted to tell me so I wouldn't waste money on a ring. etc. Went with the whole broth before hose routine. Improved my life by cutting them both out of it. Met actual the one later in life. Have an awesome family. Great kids. She's amazing. When I look back, I'm glad now that I knew. But what a ducked up thing to do to a friend then try to rationalize as looking out for said friend. Summer going into freshman year of high school I met this girl in a named chat room that I was in with mutual friends. Somehow we started talking privately. I showed her my MySpace. This was 2006 when AIM and MySpace were used. She didn't have MySpace but sent me pictures of her. She and I talked for a while over that summer. I can't recall the span of time. But we were into each other. I was showing my buddy pictures of her. He asked for her screen name and I obliged. Not thinking much of it. She was sending me their conversation logs. He was trying to hit on her. And was basically talking about what a loser I was. How a lot of my friends were losers. Not something a friend should say about another friend, especially to the girl he fancied. Well, turns out the girl I was talking to wasn't honest about herself. The girl in the pictures wasn't her. This was before catfishing was a mainstream thing. I sort of assumed that because she knew my mutual friends that she was who she said she was. So I told my buddy and he said no. I wanted to hook up with her so bad, I didn't talk to him much after that. My best friend of 8 years ghosted me 2 weeks after my dad died unexpectedly. When he finally decided to pop back up a month later. He said it was because he was tired of dealing with me crying and being depressed over my dad's death. Yeah, sorry for still being in mourning 2 weeks after he died. The thing that made it much worse for me was that his dad died in a similar way before I knew him and always used me as a shoulder to cry on but judged me when I needed a friend during a rough time. Duck you. Philip. We had been best friends since 6th grade. We are seniors now, and just these last 3 months I have invited him over. Invited him to play basketball etc. And he has responded with can't or nah. I asked him what was up or if I did anything wrong and he responded with nah, I still don't know what I did. He was my best friend and we were basically brothers. I never understood why. People get weird in high school. I had basically the same thing happen to me out of the blue. I guess some people want so badly to be cool that they shot on other people to get that. Right after the 9th of November 2001. My best friend ghosted me and started hanging out with a new girl. There was no fight or argument. It was literally us having lunch together one day and then she walked past me the next with no acknowledgement whatsoever. Came to find out her parents told her she can't hang out with terrorists. I'm Middle Eastern but born in the US and my parents are immigrants. She was white and her parents were in the military. She was literally my only friend and for 4 years after I didn't bother building a friendship with anyone else while in school because of how bad the situation made me feel. Introduced her to the guy I was super interested in and she knew I was. The worst part is she would force me to be the third wheel on her dates cause she was too shy to hang out with him. Then she took his virginity on my couch after a night of drinks. They are now married and have 5 kids. She already had 3. I had 4 friends rough me up, hold me down, and beat on my stomach until I told them where I hid my Warcraft 3 CD keys. Later in life, or earlier in life, or around the same time, they also stole all my Amazon's gear in Diablo 2. I think I had a couple Sodges and a ballista. This is really mild, and probably isn't the worst thing someone has done. That would probably be a roommate who mooched off me for years. But not an interesting story. But my friends basically made me pay for my own birthday cake on my 18th birthday. We went to Olive Garden. And they were bugging the waitress to see if they did the whole embarrassing singing birthday dessert thing. The waitress said they didn't. But they did have mini 4-person birthday cake you could order for about $8. My friends kind of looked at me. And they kind of said something like, "Let's just do it. It's your 18th. I was fully assuming they would be paying for it since it would have been like $2.60 a person. Hell, I would have thrown in and made it $2. And then the waitress asked whose check it would go on. And they said mine. After she left, I just looked at them stunned and said I couldn't afford an $8 cake. We were just high schoolers after all. My whole meal didn't cost $8 since all I had was the soup, salad, and breadsticks and it was a $5 lunch special. Their big excuse was that I could just use my dad's credit card. A credit card which I repeatedly told them was only for emergencies. They were constantly doing shit like that though. So I don't know what I expected. They had seen me use it a couple times on school trips to buy lunch and stuff, which my dad had approved of obviously. So they were always pressuring me into using it for other shit. They were truly awful friends. One of my friends found out I was out of town with my family for a weekend and proceeded to rob my house by breaking a window in back to get in. I was with him when we discovered the broken window and he acted all shocked and tried to help me figure out who did it. Years later after he told people about I found out it was him. We hadn't been friends for a while at that point. But it's weird thinking back on how he was there when I found it and acted all shocked knowing he did it. Haven't seen him in years. But I always tell myself when I do I'm gonna kick his ass. Even to this day makes me mad. Threw me aside like yesterday's trash just because I stood up to him and told him to rethink making choices that hurt other people. In HS. There were plenty of people who'd pretend to be a friend only to turn around and make fun of me with their clique. I don't think about those. Then there's one who flounced out of my life. Then didn't like that I turned away her apology and blocked her and sent me a nasty message from a fake profile. Then proceeded to stalk my web activity. I'm waiting for the phone calls from weird numbers because that's a pattern that got her a restraining order once already. Will gladly deliver another one. After my father died my mother had to sell the house. I was 18 at the time. I was given the choice between homeless and moving to the other side of the country. I figured in world couch surf. I sent most of my things with mum but decided my camping and photography gear might be worth keeping. I had a friend hold on to it with the idea being once I got settled I'd give it back. He never did. Duck you, Matt. We were completely inseparable through middle and high school and had always planned to stay together through college. She didn't get into my choice schools. So, being an extremely dumb and anxious teenager, I foolishly agreed to attend a second-rate school with her instead, as not to be alone. Shortly before the start of our freshman year of college, she informed me she was no longer going to school with me and was instead moving to Nick to live with a guy she met on the internet. She'd known this for months but neglected to tell me until it was too late to do anything about it. Had a joint betting account on Borderg with my roommate and one of my best friends. We started it as a lark and went on a crazy winning streak. I moved out, but we kept in touch and called each other every Sunday to discuss our picks. After a couple of years, the account was up to $9,000. One Sunday morning, I called him like I did every week and didn't hear back from him. I went on the account prior to the early games and it was emptied. Was never able to get in touch with him again. Started dating my boyfriend less than a week after we broke up. I'd been with him for 3 years and had been best friends with her for 4. Friendship ended after that. The sad thing is, to this day I have never found anyone that I've clicked with as well as her. And it's been 3 years since it happened. She's a very special person and I still miss her very much. Full stop. My friend Ben started dating a girl named Lindsay. Lindsay and I hit it off and soon became great friends as well. Months later, Ben started acting weirdly flirty and inappropriate toward me. And I soon learned that he was in fact cheating on Lindsay with several other girls. I didn't want to rat on a friend, but I also couldn't sit idly by. So I tried to explain all this to poor Lindsay. She responded by accusing me of trying to steal Ben from her and retaliated by hooking up with my then fiancé out of spite. BIH. Good riddance to that toxic trio. Was my whole group of friends in middle school. They all just cut me out for some reason. Eventually got really depressed. Trust issues ever since. Stole my girlfriend and they ended up getting married. She called me 5 years ago that she wanted to hook up. I really liked this one girl I had known since middle school and we were friends, but she was dating one of my other friends. She knew I was into her. Then we hired another girl at my grocery store I really liked and fell head over heels for. Yeah, my friend told her the only thing I wanted was to have sex with her and not a relationship or anything. She gave me the cold shoulder after that, and it wasn't until years later I found out why from someone else I knew. When I found out, I kicked that friend out of my life. I guess she liked all the attention I gave her and didn't want me giving that attention to someone else. I was friends with her for 4 years. All through high school. Towards the end I realized she is an extremely manipulative person. And slowly began to distance myself away. No confrontation or anything. But I stopped making an effort to hang out with her in a gradual effort to remove her from my life. She realized what was happening. Started calling me pest. Told the entire school about my deepest secrets and the skeletons in my closet that I had trusted her with. And kept referring to our spat as there is a war going on. The pest will not win. She was certifiably crazy. None of them came to my mother's funeral. It was months before any of them even acknowledged the event, and that was only because I ran into them in public. Several of them have lost a parent since. We were all 21 at the time. We are all turning 40 soon, and I have gone to everyone I could. In spite of their non-attendance and my own mental and emotional issues. Pretended to console me during my separation when she was really ducking my husband. I realized all the conversations we had about my marriage problems were being repeated to him behind my back. They went on to get married. She abused my son by telling him the nastiest, most hateful things about me. And now she legally cannot be unsupervised with him. Yet my ex stays with her. Not that bad, but friends you haven't seen for years suddenly ask you out. Only found out that ask I out to join MLM. Buy insurance. Amway and etc. Never contacted again afterward. Orchestrated my entire friend group to ghost me. It was about a week before I moved to college. So all my friends suddenly stopped talking to me. It hurt like hell and I always struggled making friends, so I had no friends and became depressed for the first 8 months of college. I was blessed to still be friends with one person from that friend group. who didn't believe that other person. That helped me recontact them and fix things. For a long time I thought things were my fault. Turns out that person was an abusive and manipulative friend who did that because I seemed to have a crush on every girl except her. Which wasn't true. She ended up doing the same thing again a couple years later, but no one believed her that time. Good riddance. Well, my friend got out of the military just before our third deployment. He was my barracks roommate and was my best man at my wedding. Well, he proceeded to move in with my wife, now ex, while we were deployed. Empty my accounts. Take all of my possessions from my home. And run off with my wife. I really miss my box. Borrowed $10,000 from my line of credit to send his parents back to their country of origin for the summer with the promise to pay me off with interest in 3 months. It took over 4 years and a messed up credit due to it. In the meantime he was buying a brand new fishing boat. New Mini Cooper, and bought a new house. He got profit selling his old house. When I confronted him, he would brush me off. I nearly lost my house because the debt was too much for me to renew my mortgage. He waited literally to the last minute to pay me enough money for it to be approved. He also started constantly condescending after About a year ago, I was hanging out with a friend I visited that knew him, and I told my friend the story. He didn't know I lent him money. My friend proceeded to tell me he kept bad-mouthing me all the time in front of people when I wasn't around. We are no longer friends and I don't lend any money to anyone. Ruin any chance I had with a girl I really liked a lot, and one of the very few ones that I got along with. Gave me a mental breakdown and drove me into almost committing suicide. Always wanting to have the last word and thinking everything was a joke when I wasn't even joking at all. Not bothering to give an effort when I invite them to important events of mine, yet they get mad at me. Always making me feel like the third wheel. Yeah, I hate them. So much time, money and effort wasted. Plus, I have trust issues and words that I can never unhear. His GF came to a party a friend of mine hosted. He didn't attend the party, as he was an intellectual and such lowbrow hooliganery was beneath him. We all got drunk and crazy. And somehow it became a topless party. I was not the instigator. But this drove him so crazy he had to blame someone, and I was the only person he knew. He informed our department head I was plagiarizing my work. He didn't realize he would be named as part of the investigation process. I was on academic probation for 2 weeks. And had to defend a bunch of my work. I was found to be not plagiarizing. And he was dragged by the faculty for making false accusations. He taught me about bartending when I was hired at a restaurant. He had been there for a few years and was their only FT bartender. Years later, my brother and I open a place and I hire him to work for us after the restaurant he trained me at closed. After working for me for 2 weeks, security tapes show him stealing liquor and cash as well. In high school, a lot of people suspected I, shy chubby girl, had a crush on my closest friend, athletic, charismatic guy, which I totally did. But one day he told another guy that he would never date me because I'm fat. The worst part is the guy he told was a mean, very spoiled kid that usually made fun of me to begin with. The person that I confided into everything and had long, deep conversation with regularly hurt me in the worst way I think I'd ever been hurt as a kid. It led to escalating a lot of my existing self-esteem issues and anxiety. Even now, 3 years later, it's hard to trust people and be confident with myself.